we need to talk about Fallout 4 VR. Here it is in all of its glory in February 2022. And over the last year or so, there's been a whole bunch of different gadgets and gizmos for VR and some lovely mods for Fallout 4 VR that I think have really made it the whole game kind of step up a level and really be one of the best open world RPGs in VR there is, if not the best open world VR, perhaps only competing with Skyrim. Now, what I'd like to do in this video series is talk you through my mod list, which in many ways is based on the amazing work done by the people on the Fallout 4 VR Reddits. I've read a lot of those little guides and I've really enjoyed them and I've experimented with them and I've put together my mod list, which is based partly on some people's and based partly on others and a lot of my own kind of input. And what I'd like to do is talk you through in a few episodes what I've got, why I chose it, why I got rid of some of the others, and then allow you to kind of come up with your own mod list off the back of that. A few people have already asked me if I can put together a Wabberjack. I mean, maybe if there's enough kind of interest in it, but I think for me, the real fun of modding a game like Fallout is choosing the kind of game you want to make. And the thing about a game like Skyrim or Fallout is it can be 20 different games depending on how you choose to mod it. And in this series I'll be going through the version of the game I've made, which for this playthrough is kind of a survival crafting slow kind of build, but then I'll be talking through the mods that you could replace or switch out if you wanted to make something slightly different. And in this first episode I'm just going to be talking through how I've set up my computer and what I've got kind of running behind the scenes to give me, as you can see up here, 72 frames per second with about 40% performance headroom. So that is going to be our goal here. As you can see, I've got lots of kind of texture mods running. I'm standing here kind of in a nice beautiful forest. If you don't like this forest, don't worry, there are alternatives that I will be talking about in a future episode. But you can see as I'm walking around here, my frame rate is relatively stable on the 72. It does dip, but when I get to there's a cow. It does dip when I get to Boston and Diamond City, but it goes down to about 50 for me. And I'll talk about my specs, and I'm also going to talk about how you can change what I've set up based around your particular specs as well, because you might be able to go higher than me, you might have to go a little bit lower than me, but those things will change. So let's pause the game there and just have a little look at my desktop. Now I am running here on the Oculus. I'm using Airlink. Now the reason why I'm using Airlink is because it runs better for me and it looks sharper for me, and I think that resolution in Fallout is everything. Now if this was one of those games where you had like big chunky objects, then I think resolution is less important because the shape of the objects is going to remain roughly the same whether you're on a low resolution, a medium resolution, or a high resolution. But if I just look out there across those woods, or I kind of look into the sight of my pistol gun, which is quite far away here, or I'm trying to look into a city, there's a lot of detail that I need there in order to enjoy being out in this world and not just have kind of like a blurry mess in the distance. And therefore, I would argue in Fallout and games like it, resolution is really, really important, and therefore running the game at the highest possible resolution that you can is probably more important than other things. So I am running Fallout 4 VR without Steam VR by using Open Composite through Oculus Air Link. I'm on the Oculus 2 headset and I'm running this wirelessly, which means I can stand in my dining room and I'm not kind of attached to any wires and things like that. And if I wasn't using this, the alternative would probably be using virtual desktop and running through Steam VR and using some of the other tools, like trying to get some sort of like foveated rendering, and I think there's a VR performance toolkit that's just come out, and they will also gain you frames per second. But if you are going through Oculus, that I'm really enjoying the Airlink. Now, the other thing I'm doing here is, rather than using the foveated rendering, I'm sticking the distortion curvature on low. Now, foveated rendering, basically what it does is the middle of your screen where you look all the time your game will render it very, very sharply. And then what it does is the further you get away from the middle, it lowers the resolution, because what you can see over here is probably quite blurry anyway if you're playing in VR. So the idea is what it is doing is it's gaining useful frames per second by lower resolution here, higher resolution here. Distortion curvature is doing a similar thing kind of within the Oculus system. And we've also got some additional sharpening here done by the Oculus system. Now, let's draw a distinction here between the power of your PC to produce high resolution and also the ability of your network to have a high bitrate. Now, the resolution that you are running at, and if I come across here to my Oculus, and if I go into devices and settings, I am running this on 72 Hertz, and I'm running it at the max resolution. I have an NVIDIA 3080, and if I didn't, this is the one that I would be bringing down. Now, of course, it's not going to look as good. The resolution is going to go down, but that is basically what I bought myself by buying myself a 380, which wasn't cheap. But this is the one that is really based around the power of your graphics card. Now, I could push this up, but of course, if I push this up, I'm going to get bigger swings. And if I was to put this on, say, 120/90, at certain places, probably where I'm standing right now, I'd probably hit the 90, or it might be kind of around between the 80 and the 90. But if I start going towards Diamond City, certain kind of interiors, it's going to drop right down. So I've tried to give myself a more stable frame rate here. Likewise, if I didn't have a 3080, I'd be pulling this one down and maybe reducing this kind of down as well. But this is based around the graphics card. Whereas this one, the bitrate here, and if I go to my Oculus Air Link here, the bitrate here, this is based around my network conditions. So do you have a dedicated router? Is it 5? I was going to say 5G, but that's not quite the right word. But is it is it a modern performing router? Is it only the VR headset and the PC that is on that router? Are you getting interference from your neighbors? All of these things will impact that. And it is possible that you might have a high bit rate here and have to lower your graphical settings, or you might have a high graphical settings and you might have to lower it here based on your network. Now, the other thing I would recommend you do here is look at your bit rate here. Now, if at certain points of the day, and it really does change at certain points of the day, I can run this up at 300 and the game looks gorgeous. Like, it's just pumping so much graphical fidelity into my headset. This is because I'm running it wirelessly, and I would rather run it wirelessly than tethered. But sometimes it feels like I'm almost walking through soup. There's that kind of like, I'm walking on the moon type feeling, and there's a delay in my hands. And that is adjusted not by my graphics, but by the bit rate here. So I would then lower that down to maybe 150 and hit save. My graphics will instantly take a hit, but I can do it live mid-games, it's not a problem. And then I would move kind of back across, but 200 seems to be the safe option. Now, the other thing I do here is this is, I can't remember what this stands for, ASW, Ultras Auto Synchronous something or other. This one will make your computer run at half resolution once you start to kind of struggle. So I always turn this one off. It's not a bad thing, and sometimes it can actually make things smoother, but I would rather have my computer pushing it when it can. This one makes a huge difference on games like Microsoft Flight Simulator. Basically what it's doing is it's stopping the game from producing the frames, the pixels that you can't see, that are outside of your field of view, which is the FOV here. I'm not sure whether it makes a huge difference in Fallout, to be honest. However, on other games it does, so I would leave it on because it does good things. And this is the visual HUD which I've had in front of us here. So I'm going to turn that off now because you can see here that hopefully you can see by now that I'm getting a relatively stable 72. So what else do I have running in my version of Fallout? Obviously, I've got lots and lots of mods, and in the future videos, I'm going to be talking about my graphics videos and my gameplay videos, and my gameplay mods and my graphics mods, and all sorts of weird and wonderful things are kind of going on here, along with Frick and all that. But this video is about the setup, the frameworks. What do we have running? So if I again flick across to my desktop, and we have a good little look here at my mod list, which is This one, I'm just going to scroll right up to the top and just talk you through the first like 6 or 7 mods here. Now, the VCheck patcher, the version check patcher, basically tricks all of your mods into thinking you have a later version of Fallout than you actually do. A lot of modern mods need a later version of Fallout than, unfortunately, Fallout VR is. The version check patcher means that all of the mods below it will think you have a later version. Now, this of course doesn't mean all of the mods will work, because they might need a later version, but sometimes it just wants a later version but doesn't actually need it, if you see the difference. And so this would make sure that all of the other ones will work fine. For example, I have Workshop Framework running, and when I run this with this on, it pops up an error and it says, you don't have the right version. You click OK, it goes into the game anyway, and Workshop Framework works because the VCheck patcher has kind of tricked it into thinking we have it. The next two are both, which is Fallout 4 VR Tools and Fallout 4 VR Skin Framework. Both of these allow you to use Creation Club content, or they give you the tools for mods like Idle Hands and other ones, I believe. To be honest, in my mod list, these two aren't doing a lot, but if you think you might use creation content, or you might have quite a long mod list, there's nothing wrong with sticking them on. They're not going to cause you any problems. And again, these mods are preparing the way for the rest of the mods that are coming afterwards. We've got the unofficial Fallout 4 patch, that was hard for me to say, with the unofficial Fallout 4 VR fix made by Gingers, who has been an absolute amazing contributor to the Fallout 4 VR community. And finally, we have MCM VR, which only came out a few months ago, and MCM is the mod configuration manager. And if I click on this, you can see all of my mod configs. And for many months, maybe even years, VR users weren't able to do this, but someone, and I don't actually know who because I can't find the trace of it, made a version that actually works in VR for us. And if I just kind of flick down here, you can see that I can adjust the font in my HUD by doing this. But disaster! We cannot scroll these. I cannot move them up and down unless I go to my keyboard. But wait, yes we can, because the other tool I have running here, which I use for lots and lots of different things, is voice attack, which basically listens to everything you say, and if you say particular commands, it responds. Now I have about 10, maybe 20 commands set up to help me in Fallout, because we only have about 10 buttons on our hands and so on. So I like to fill out some of the other things that I might need by using voice attack. For example, press the left arrow, press the right arrow. So that is using voice attack to adjust those tools, which is brilliant. And you can also set it up. I mean, I'll talk about this perhaps in a future video, but you can also do things like pop a jet. There you go. And now I am in slow motion and I dance around. So you can set it up to different weapons, to put your weapons away, to use various drugs like I have here, to activate cheats. It's Fallout. Sometimes you get stuck. So I also have it set up to let me let's walk through walls. And there you go, I've turned on the clipping here. And it's a toggle, so I can turn it off again by saying the same command. Let's walk through walls. Let's walk through walls. And there you go, and it fixed itself. Sometimes you have to say them twice. Sometimes you might mumble or spit when you speak and it doesn't pick it up. It's a really useful tool, and there's a free version which you can put about 10 commands in, but it's not expensive if you want to buy more. And if, like me, once you get started, you'll just start thinking of so many commands that you can use that you end up with an absolute ton of them. And again, in the future videos, I'll talk you through some of the other ones that I have. Last two that I'm going to talk about today. So I've got the Armor and Weapon Keywords Community Resource. I didn't really want this one, but my Fallout was unstable without it. I've got just a few armor and costume mods here, and something was causing me problems. I'm not entirely sure what, but at the end of the day, I had to put it back in, and my game has been a lot more stable with it. So that's the Armor and Weapon Keywords Community Resource. I can't speak. And then all of this is to do with Fall UI, which is my item sorter mod and my HUD and my user interface. And if I just kind of hop on over here, you can see that if I look down at this tire, nothing happens. If I look down at this broom, you can see it has a little icon and it tells me that it's made of wood and plastic, which is fantastic. And if I, and if I go over here, you can see that there's a pen in there and that pen has plastic in it. So it's really good for me seeing all these kind of resources and seeing what I need. And likewise, if I go into my HUD, you can see there's a beautiful sorting mod here as well. So there's clothing and armor, and so it categorizes everything you want: soft drinks, spirit, medicines, etc., etc., and only leaves out things from a few other mods that are kind of almost like miscellaneous. Then what you And if, of course, you don't like my font, I think I picked this one while we were on this stream. I picked some Gothic thing. But because we have mod config, you can change loads of the settings in the full UI in inventory mod here. You know, you can see here interface coloring. There's so many things that you can adjust if you want to. So I'll just, for example, here, I'll change it to Roberto Condensed. And I already showed you earlier how you can adjust the font size. And you can see it's now changed more into a more well-known Fallout font. So if I just show you again so what I've got here is I've got the Fall UI item sorter mod and Fall UI and the Fall UI HUD for VR. And I believe those two are now on the same page, but you have to go and look into the optional files. But you need all three of them in that order to get it working. Two more things I'm going to show you in this video. I said one more thing, but I am going to say two because this is the setup. The other thing I always run is complex sorter. And if I show you here on my plugins, we'll see right at the bottom, you've got MAR complex sorter. And what this does is, rather than me downloading a mod that does all the sorting for me, I generate it myself. And what's brilliant about generating it yourself is that I can put together any set of mods I want and then run this afterwards, and all of those items from those mods will then be included within the sorting. So I would strongly suggest what you do is you put your game together with all the mods, and then you run complex sorter. And if you ever add on another mod, you run complex sorter as well. As long as you don't have to do it too often, it's not a pain. It takes about 5 minutes, maybe less if you don't have many mods. But it's really, really good, and it just brings everything together, and it makes it your mod list as well. It's not just a mod list, it's your mod list, which is why complex sorter is really, really good. The last thing I want to say to you is this. Your mod order affects your FPS, your frames per second. Less so this side, although this often looks like this is your mod order, but no, it's actually this. This is to do with whether like one texture overwrites another. So you can see, let's go here. So I've got the mercenary pack with no armor, whatever, and it is overwriting the mercenary, for example, because it's a patch. And I've got blood mist overhaul here, which is slightly overwriting the blood textures. But by and large, this order doesn't matter too much, because you can see where one thing overwrites another. But this side, these are the big changes that are happening to your game, and so the order that you put your mods in does make a difference. And just use a very simple example here. I disabled Frick, which is my arms, which is my body. I disabled it and re-enabled it for experimental reasons, and when it re-enabled it, it enabled it in a different position to what it had originally been in, and I lost 20 frames per second. I don't really know why. I don't know why that made such a difference to my frames per second, but it did. And as soon as I switched it back, I got those extra 20 frames back. So it's, how to do a good load order is outside the scope of this kind of one video, but go and find some guides. Make sure if you're reading in mod instructions, say what do you put above what. Obviously, I'll talk you through my mod order in the next episode, and you can see what I've got here. But it does make more difference than you think that it should, and your mod order will give you a more stable, a more pleasant, and a more Fallout-y game. So thank you very much for watching. In the next episodes and beyond, I will be talking you through the graphics mods and all the texture mods and the gameplay mods, and I'll show you kind of a bit more gameplay, and I'll kind of take you to different locations, and I'll show you around my little world. As you can see, there are lots of new locations around. You can see some boats over there. You can probably see some little kind of shacks over there. This is a new world to be explored. And look, a little mouse or something over there. There's lots of exciting things to see and play with in the Adipose's Fallout. So thank you for watching. Please like the video, please subscribe, and join me for the next episode. And if you want to see me play through Fallout, then come join me on Twitch. I'm going to be doing a playthrough as Geralt the Witcher in Fallout, kind of seeing how that works. And so do come and join me over on TheAdiposeTV on Twitch. It'll be great to see you there. Take care. Bye-bye. And now the awkward pause while I have to press the button that says stop recording.